Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Wednesday, the 16th of October. I'm Stephen Ridgway. GitHub has patched a critical flaw in Enterprise Server. The flaw allows for unauthorized instance access. So the vulnerability is tracked to CVE 2024 9487 with a CVSS score of 9.5, so pretty serious. According to the article, an attacker could bypass SAML single sign-on authentication with the optional encrypted assertions feature, allowing unauthorized provision of users and access to the instance. Patches are available, so would very much recommend that you take a look at that and apply the patches if you are using GitHub Enterprise Server. WhatsApp has been shown to, it has been discovered that you can identify the operating system of a device running WhatsApp by looking at the way in which WhatsApp's IDs are created. So the issue is basically that the app on different operating systems creates the unique ID in a different way. So, for example, at its simplest, on Android devices, the app creates a 32-character ID. iPhone uses a 20-character prefix that's preceded with 4 additional characters, and the desktop app for Windows uses an 18. It also means that it would be possible for an attacker with some knowledge of how to identify these IDs would be able to then fingerprint operating systems on various devices. As understanding the OS is very useful from the point of view of delivering malware and other compromise, these methods of fingerprinting, I think these methods of fingerprinting are not unique, but they are relatively, this would be relatively straightforward. Excuse me. There's nothing that can be done about it at the moment. I think it's just one of those things that you have to be aware of if you are using WhatsApp, and just be cautious about who you communicate with on WhatsApp. Although I'm not sure when the IDs are shared, whether they're shared just because somebody has sent you a message, or do you actually have to have an accepted conversation with somebody? Not sure. Probably needs more thought, but definitely something that is worth being aware of if you are using WhatsApp and you are particularly bothered about whether people are beginning to trying to fingerprint the devices that you're using. Okay, so WordPress. WordPress and WP Engine, ongoing story. They're having a battle over whether WP Engine is legitimately using WordPress. So WordPress being open source, WP Engine being a sort of hosted implementation of WordPress that is very common, because if you who would really want to run their own web hosting environment. Long and short of it is the owner of WordPress, Mullenweg, I think, or Mullenweg, I think he is called, has kicked off about basically the fact that WP Engine is making money, although it doesn't appear to be in breach of any of the licensing rules around the open source software. Anyway, so blah blah blah. Latest thing is around a plugin known as Advanced Custom Fields, ACF. ACF is maintained by WP Engine. WordPress is no longer directly supporting that and has created Secure Content Fields, SCF. It basically means if basically ins and outs around all this stuff, and it does seem to be storm in a teacup, but never mind. Anyway, at the moment, if you're using WordPress ACF, check, especially if you're using WordPress ACF and you're also hosting on WP Engine, just check that things are working the way that you expect them to, because the update servers are being messed about with. The situation is more complicated by the fact that if you've got a paid version of ACF, you probably are still receiving updates. If you're using the free version of ACF, you might not be receiving updates. You may have been automatically migrated onto what was the other one called? SCF, but you might not have been. So just to be aware of. This is all very confusing, but I would say the simplest thing to do is check that you are getting the updates you're expecting to be getting if you're using or were using either ACF or SCF for custom fields. So came across an article in Info Security magazine this morning that's talking about the way in which AI can be manipulated. Now, the last time I read any research, to 20% of facts presented to you by I think it was it was certainly the major large language models. Up to 20% of the facts are made up by AI in kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Once it's made something up, it tends to then remember that it's made it up, and it starts referencing, referencing itself, and so on and so forth. The fact that AI learns from specific sets of documents has been spotted as a means by which the knowledge in AI can be manipulated. So there is a concept that's being referred to as confused pilot, which basically works like this. Data environment poisoning, so an attacker sends crafted content to documents that are indexed by AI. When a query is then made, AI references the tainted information, so that's document retrieval. AI misinterpretation, well then AI uses the malicious content as instructions, potentially disregarding legitimate information, generating misinformation, or falsely attributing its responses to credible sources. Again, as I said, once that's then in the AI environment, doesn't matter if you then remove, delete, or otherwise tidy up the malicious documents, the AI has learnt, as it were, this and knows about it. So Certainly something to be aware of if you're using AI for uh, factual-based things. Definitely need to think about data access controls around what information is your AI solution learning from, and who has the ability to change, manipulate, or otherwise alter those documents. Definitely worth doing regular audits to check the integrity of the data which is used to train AI. Segment the data, so don't just point it at some pool somewhere. Know exactly what data it is you are allowing it to learn from. Implement some security tools. There are security tools appearing for being developed for AI systems, but also in the end, human oversight of what's going on is very important. So if you're using AI at the moment, or thinking about using AI, just be aware of some of these foibles. Okay, and then finally from me, a little bit more about quantum attacks on current encryption standards. We've been talking recently about the fact that standards are appearing in the US, or US driven, around quantum resistant encryption algorithms. And we have spoken about the fact that we need to begin the migration, certainly the testing, and creating a plan around what we're doing with quantum resistant encryption algorithms, because quantum computing is not far off being able to break current encryption algorithms. Well, there is some as yet unpeer-reviewed research coming out of China. As an early release says that they have been able to use quantum annealing, a quantum annealing public key cryptographic attack algorithm based on D-Wave advantage to decrypt setting up a tunnel. Once you have a tunnel in place, an encrypted tunnel in place, bulk data transfers are normally symmetrically encrypted because it's fast. And if that bit can be broken by quantum computing, which it appears it may now be possible, that then puts the confidentiality of a lot of information at risk. So I don't think we're being overly pessimistic or doom and gloom in this area. I think it's not something to panic over, but it's certainly something that is worth thinking about. And this article lends weight to the fact that we are not far off. And equally, at the same time, the FHE Technical Consortium for Hardware is pushing for investment in quantum resilient cryptographic standards. There's an article in Dark Reading about this, which I think is interesting. And again, I think it's something where, if we are in this space, lending support to these activities is definitely worthwhile. And I also think it is worthwhile keeping on top of movements in this area, because things are changing fast in this space. And as I said before, you don't want to discover tomorrow that actually Chinese quantum computing has now rendered all your encrypted data vulnerable, because doing something about it, you then don't have time to do stuff about it. And just as another quick reminder, and I know I've said this before, but I'll say it again just so it's in the forefront of people's minds. There are nation state adversaries who are just hoovering up data, regardless of whether it's encrypted or not, into vast storage, vast areas of storage, on the assumption that they will be able to decrypt it later, because later is not that far away. So bear in mind that the value of your encrypted data, the value lifetime, i.e. the value must reach zero before the data can be decrypted. So if it takes, let's say, the value of your data is a year. If it takes a year and a day to decrypt it, doesn't matter, because once that information has been decrypted, it's no longer useful. Stuff like company financials and things like that. Well, it all gets published once a year anyway, so blah, blah, blah. That's just an example. If, however, the data is valuable for a year, but suddenly quantum computing means that it can be decrypted in a few seconds, or a few minutes, even a few hours or days, then that encryption is not suitable for that data. Right? Think of it that way. Okay, that's enough from me for today. Hope you have a good